But what about your hi?
But they are the hosts.
So they have to say, na, hi,
The
I'm.
guests have to say hi.
Hi, I'm Harish.
Hi, I'm Meghna.
You gotta give a better pass. No lag, huh? In my head, this is the closest I'm going to get to Karan Johar's show.
3, 2, 1, action.
Hi, I'm Harish.
Hi, I'm Meghna, and this is our story.
Yay.
Sorry. We got the expressions also. Super stuff.
You can't have this water sipping after this shot and all that. That's a
Yeah,
little
I
like
know. No.
LS. Sorry.
Please cut that out. We have to.
So, thank you so much for doing this. And we have some exciting set of questions planned. I'll give you a quick context of why we are doing this.
Is it because I'm young, she's old, she's rich, I'm poor?
Yeah, that's one of the things.
Summary.
We are meeting now. I haven't even discussed about the podcast with the both of you. We've
Yeah,
not
that's-
connected on this at all.
That's good, that's good.
This is his idea, huh?
I know, and this is his idea. I was like, no, not with. I'm not ready for this.
डर के आगे जीत है.
So, now that we are warmed up, so we had thought of a very cool rapid fire to start
Oh,
this
wow,
off.
we're starting with rapid fire. I love it. Okay.
Do we get
All right.
hamper?
Yeah, Siddharth is gonna get it.
I'll get it.
Oh
I'll
my
get
god.
it.
Okay.
First June.
But you have to perform well.
But we have to fight
Always.
for it.
I'm born ready.
Okay, I'm gonna start the first segment of the rapid fire. Rapid fire also has two segments. So, the first segment, Meghna, what is that one movie that speaks the most to you?
Oh, God, there's too many movies.
Rapid fire.
Rapid.
Just why don't you just ship that hamper to me?
Pulp Fiction,
Oh,
Juno.
This question is for Harish. What's your spiciest opinion that most people disagree with?
Design is overrated.
Meghna, if money wasn't a factor, what would you do with
Oh
your time?
shit.
Yoga.
Oh.
Okay.
You can't just give up bonus points for that.
I will.
Okay, Harish. Should pineapples be on pizza?
100%. Yes.
And raita. I think pineapple,
Pineapple raita
is
is the best thing on earth.
Okay, moving on to the next part of our rapid fire. So, Harish, what is that one household chore that Meghna hates doing?
Oh fuck.
It's a tough one because I love household
Yeah.
chores.
Oh no, I know. Dream cleaning.
Meghna, what do you enjoy the most in Harish's company?
He makes me laugh a lot.
Really?
Quick heads up, this podcast might give a lot of revelations. You know, we tended to do that a lot.
Right.
With our
Yeah,
guests,
good. You'll
so-
save us $2,500 for a string session.
Okay, by raise of hands, who is Eva's favorite?
She has very clear favorites, but for specific things.
More
She
because
comes
of
to me for comfort. She goes to Harish for fun.
Meghna, yes. If there was a time capsule going back to when you first met, what would you write as a note for Harish?
So I'm going back to Teach for India when I hired him. I guess my note would be, what are you really about?
Oh shit.
I'll tell you like how the genesis of some of our questioning is. It is a lot of it has been sort of inspired by my experience of the two of you and how you guys think and you have sort of treated the world and your life around. So with that, I want to know what's your definition of love.
You go.
No, you go first.
I think love is a place where you find a lot of, you feel safe, you feel comfortable, you feel like you can be your craziest, ugliest, wackiest self, and it's okay. And lastly, I would say it's also where you discover a lot about your own self in that journey of love.
So for me, like, if I had to define love, in one word, it would be the word yearning, which is this desperate, obsessive compulsion to be with someone. So it is a little psychopathic obsession. If you guys have seen the movie Before Sunrise, it's basically that. It's like that. It's actually part painful, part obsession, part intoxicating. So my version is very, I would say, borderline abusive to a point, emotionally for ourselves. It's that kind of that. It's very movie like.
So I have a question uh, in addition to this, which I've been meaning to ask you for a while, but I was actually saving it for this podcast. So, you know, uh, I mean, after like seeing your Aadhaars, I was like blown away, honestly, right? That okay, there is this big difference in age, and then I was just like back calculating that okay, it's been like 6 to 7 years to their marriage, which means like Meghna was almost in her late 30s when she had decided to get married. Now, in my observation, in my life, what I have seen, um, if a woman is looking for love, is interested in love, is looking to settle, they have this vision that, okay, by 30, I want to settle and I want to have kids or I want to have stability by this age. But things were different for you, right? Um, you went way past 30 to reach a point to, get married. And I'm sure like at that point, something must have shifted which did not happen at your 25s and 28s. So I want to know what was happening in your late 20s, and then what was your mindset like before you decided to get married?
Yeah, I had an interesting 20s. I think I was in quite a few, that sounds wrong, but I was in a few relationships.
Yeah.
And,
All right.
and they didn't go, I mean, when I'm in them, I get completely in them. Like they're all my relationships in the past, my serious ones have been like, oh, this is the forever. Um, they didn't work out that way. And I think after a point when I was in my early 30s, I think through that journey of broken hearts or breaking hearts, whatever it is, um, became a lot more surer of myself and being with myself. So, in my mind, I think when you're in your 20s as a woman, perhaps you you look to fill certain gaps or certain aspirations or certain things, and you're seeking them and you're trying to figure those things out and you're trying to discover yourself in that process and all of those things. So there is like so many question marks, but then by the time I met Harish, I think I was in a very confident place as to where I am. I started practicing this Buddhism called Nichiren Buddhism, which really centered me after a lot of potentially different emotional roller coasters. So I think when I met him, I was not even really looking for a partner or love or anything. I say, okay, chalo, been there, done that. I'm just gonna now work, like focus on my work. It wasn't very long that I was with Teach for India when I met him, so it's not like I was working there for a while. So I was also still getting warmed up to that job, super passionate about it. And yeah, so I think that's what really helped. If I were in a position where I was like, when am I going to meet that guy, and what's that guy going to be like? I don't know if it would have, like, we would have like even us would have happened, because I mean, to be real, Harish and I don't fill each other's standard checkboxes for each other. So I think, honestly only happened because I was very like, life is great. I am great. I'm in a great position. And he came in and he just really surprised me with like such freshness of perspective. I think the thing that I was attracted to him the most was at an intellectual level, where I was just blown by his by the way he just made me think. And I was like, oh, not only was I blown by the way he thinks, but the way he made me think. And that just made me like, that I think was the trigger.
That's so interesting because a lot of times I have heard, and also, the idea of love or having a person with you, a companion, was about them filling something that's not present, or that void which needs to be completed or matched, right? But then in that process, you're actually not the most comfortable with yourself, and that is why I feel like somebody else will come in, make me feel comfortable, nice, and good about my life, but I myself alone don't feel that, and that's why I need someone else. And how a lot of people keep that as their idea of love, that I will feel more happy and loved and cared for, and given more attention that I need, right? So it's nice to hear how you think about it and how what is your side of it. It's interesting.
Also, I think never in any previous relationships had I met someone who went like Bollywood style wooing me. So that I mean, I have to give credit to Harish for that. Like, he went all out, like all out, and it was like an offer you can't refuse kind of a situation.
I've heard one story, and I think Siddharth had come home and told me about it. The first chat of Harish with your father,
That was much
and how
later.
that was much later. I think before that,
No,
things
but
must have
we should
happened.
get to some of the wooing elements, whichever whatever Harish and Meghna they remember. What
Yeah.
was it like?
You gotta like
What
share
was the
the
Bollywood?
memories, right?
Uh,
I'm the
it,
wooer, you're the
yeah.
wooey.
It was wild. Like, he went from everything from writing poetry and sticking it under the bonnet of my car to making life's like such big sized um, painting of me. And
Wow.
yeah, it was. I mean, he went pretty much, I would say, all out. Everything that you can think of.
Damn, that's so cool.
So what was happening with Harish? Harish, like, why were you giving so much to this?
So it's connected to this, whatever you were asking before, which is how I define love. So it is, so I kind of center my entire life and lifestyle and everything, all choices around, yeah, like full on like Hindi picture style. So for me, like even when I actually decided to like say, okay, I'm gonna marry Meg, it was because, and I know everyone like laughs at this. If you guys have seen Humpty Sharma Ki Dulhania, yeah.
Yes, we have. I have.
So,
He has. So,
so I was in my head. I was like, this guy said, I want to marry you
yeah.
so quickly. Like after like 15 days, I said, so pata pata ke. And then he's like, हाँ तू ये kind of a thing. So in my head, like as in I kind of romanticize these ideas, and so even if I have nothing figured out in life, adult life, paisa, this that, in my head I'm like वो सब कर लेंगे हम लोग life पे. But like it's like अभी kind of chase karna hai kind of a thing. So I kind of enjoy chases and stuff like that. So it was a no-brainer, like because so once we started speaking, I was like, wow, she couldn't give a shit about me. Great, like like that's it's like a thing, right? It's like that. There's a lot of like adaigi, Madhuri Dixit style, right? Like so, when you have all that and you have someone who's like who couldn't give a shit about anything and my jokes didn't land. So then you're like, fuck,
I just said
this
you
is
made
damn
me
good.
laugh.
I know you make, I think you started laughing eventually when you're like, okay, yaar, chal, isko ek to at least in 10 times, do teen baar to has lete hain, like everything. Because half my jokes didn't land because half of them were like Hindi or something else, and you're like, okay, sounds good, and you're like, I was like, you didn't get the connection, and I'm like, yeah, you didn't get the connection. like, like I pulled a full Shah Rukh Khan move of like Kuch Hota Hai. You know the
Oh, you did the dance
no.
thing.
I got flowers from like I had it in my jacket. I did that,
Oh,
and
that
he
Ferrero.
says, "वैसे मेरे पास chocolates भी हैं." The Ferrero Rochers.
Ah,
I did the exact scene.
Ferrero, yes.
Which, by the way, because I
Oh,
don't watch Hindi movies
She's
that
like,
much,
"Whoa!"
I thought this was a Harish Subramanian original.
Yeah.
And then 5 years into our wedding, I'm watching the scene on TV because I started now watching Hindi movies with him. And I'm like, yeah, this is looking really familiar. Some deja vu is happening over here.
Yeah. So for me, like it's
Full
like
scam.
जो भी like दिखाए टीवी पे सब try करना है क्योंकि वैसे भी it's so in my head it's like this is way out of my league scene happening, so it's obviously going to tank. So I'm like देखते हैं how shitty do I have to get to fuck this up. So it's like always like challenge
Bollywood
accepted,
India
like like
rescue.
let's just वैसे भी कुछ होने नहीं वाला है तो ये टाइम पे थोड़ा enjoy कर लेते हैं हमारा एटलीस्ट ये जो बॉलीवुड वाला सीन है I'm just going to fulfill that. So I've just fulfilled all those Bollywood scenes. I'm very happy.
So in chronology, was Harish the first one to make the move, or was it?
What do you think? Like, why don't you take a wild guess right now? Like, Meg is like Zen
Okay, let's
mode,
talk about
Buddhist,
marriage.
like chanting. You think she gives a shit about making a move right now? Like, this is not it. Like, what kind of a question is that? Sid.
I think he spoke all about how he chased her, but he had to ask
Yeah.
this. That's nice.
Just to get the joke out from Harish.
Punchline.
Get it?
Yeah, punchline.
But I was actually asking about the marriage scene, that when it came to marriage, who made, like, the wedding, who made the first move to propose the idea. The question I want to ask is that what were the conversations like when you were considering to get married?
I would say it was Harish putting out the idea and me saying, "Are you fucking crazy?" There is no way.
No, not because she was like, why marriage or not? She was like, with you. As in, that was the are you fucking crazy part. Like, not, she was very ready to marry. But I think when she was telling me, I'm in that stage where I would like to like settle down and marry, I didn't know that I took the message very wrong, right? Like, because I was like, oh, मुझे इशारा दे रही है. She was actually like priming me that ये होने वाला है अभी खत्म in some time. Because I have to move on to like real life, where I have to pursue like a marriageable man, at
No,
least with
to
an
me,
Amex card or some shit.
No.
Sorry.
For me, it was just too soon. Where he was, I mean, I think we
that's
were
also true.
dating for a few months.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Chalo, now this is it." And I was like, "No, hang on." So it was nothing like what.
Yeah,
you're
my
saying.
this is it were all like synced with like release dates of movies. So जब feeling आ गया तो मैं I'm like ready. चल यार अभी इसने हाँ बोल दिया तो हम लोग को भी हाँ बोलना है.
So he had actually proposed the idea to me at one point where I said no way and basically said no.
Hey, I didn't propose the idea. I actually did a whole proposal by the way. And you said no. You said yes first, and then I could see that. Yeah. I did a whole. Yeah. I did 2 rounds of this, by the way.
Yeah, he's done 2 proper proposals. But
Like 2 dramatic, hardcore proposals.
But then the second time around, after a few months after that,
Meghna, you got 2 proposals.
yes.
If you want, I'll give you one also. है मेरे पास एक और scripted है.
So that time I said no, but then a few months later, I think is when we both sort of knew that okay, now is really the time. Is in May, around this time, was when he did a crazy, amazing proposal for me, which I can take you through.
Why?
Yes, I would love to know about it.
The one that worked.
The one that worked.
Yeah, the one.
Hey,
that
listen,
worked.
both would have
Both were
worked.
pretty cool.
It's just that.
No, so what he did was
Shani Bhari.
I had actually just flown back from the US, so I was very badly jet lagged. So I was up at 5-6 in the morning, and then I called him fairly early, or he called me because he was up, and was like, "Chal, I'll best way to get rid of your jet lag is I'll take you around the city. We'll play a fun game." So in my whatever half jet lag state, I was like, "Okay, fine. What's the game?" And then he came over and he said, "Here's the game," and he had this sheet of paper with these 10 like markers, and he said, it's a quiz game, but you have to go around the city for this to play this game with me, and if you answer the questions correctly, then there's a prize that you'll get at the end of it. So I was like, "Chalo, let's play." I mean, great way to get over jet lag. And each of the questions was about a place, a food place, like a restaurant, that has some personal connection with the two of us. So, this is where we first had our first coffee, or this is where we had one big fight, or this is where, whatever. So I had to guess that based on a poem that he wrote as a clue. So each clue was like an actual poem that he wrote, and I had to read that poem, and I had to guess what the place was, and if I guessed it correctly, I would get a star on that number, and then we would go to that place, and we would actually go and eat or drink at whatever that place was, and then over there I'd read the next clue. So there's a lot of eating when it came, a lot of drinking, and by the end of, I think closer towards the 10th one, I was like, I don't know if I can eat anymore, although it was like all amazing places. But the last one was actually took us to his house.
No, my parents
His-
never house.
I mean, his parents, where he was living. So we went to, the last clue took us to his house. And then when we got to his house, I think there was a clue around our favorite song together. And then magically that song started playing in the background. And then while we were just naturally dancing towards it is when he pulled out this ring out of nowhere and proposed to me. And yeah, it was very cool. I should have brought those notes. I could have read one or two of them out to you, but I have
That's a
them somewhere.
gold standard proposal.
Wow, Harish. Wow, I'm so impressed.
So it was a
So
whole day long proposal because it literally took the whole day from morning to evening for us to go through those 10 places and those 10 rooms.
Damn, Meg, you're so lucky. Listen to this and you're like,
Yeah.
damn, Harish.
I like friends waiting in the bedroom,
Yeah.
and I told them, listen, I've already heard a no once. So if it's a no, we'll do old monk and we'll chill. If it's a yes, we'll do a little better upgraded whiskey. So daru to milega, but depending on the yes or a no.
They were all hiding in the bedroom. So when I said yes, he's like screamed out loud. He
No,
was
first
like,
I said, she said yes.
yeah, he was like, she said yes.
And
And
nobody
I
heard
was
it.
like, okay. And then again, he's like, she said yes. And I'm like, Harish. Finally, like, all these
She's
people
like,
came
why are you
out and were like,
screaming?
congratulations.
That's funny. Yeah.
But Meg, you had mentioned once that there was I think there was an interesting dynamic between your father and Harish, because of which a lot of things happened the way it happened. So you want to give us some?
Yeah, Harish decided that he's going to take matters into his own hands and called up my dad and said, meet me at Starbucks, whatever questions you have, we'll
No,
hash it
because
out
they were a
now."
little like hesitant and they're a little shy as parents. So shy as in like they're not very extroverted. So while they obviously look very hesitant because they're like, ये मतलब ये माली के साथ कैसे like but then I'm kidding.
It's going public.
Oh, it's going public. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm so sorry. In case Meg, your dad is watching this, like in his free time. No. But they obviously it would have been like crazy curveballs for them. But then I sensed that they were a little partially uncomfortable, but very supportive. So then I was like, okay, let's figure this out. So that's when I
Yeah,
said,
so he met dad at Starbucks, and I don't know what you can ask him what he did because I wasn't there. All I know is it was 2 hours, and I'm sitting with my mom, being like, one of them has killed the other. So because it was like literally 2 hours, and they hadn't come back yet. The only thing I know is when my dad came home, and I think Harish didn't come back. He sort of bounced from there. But my dad came home, and he was like, "This guy is great." And I'm sold.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know
he's
you said
like,
that.
this guy's great.
Wow.
I'm sold. I was like, okay.
And was there a moment when Meg, you met Harish's mom, dad separately?
No.
They were sold कि इसको मिल गई.
As in, they were like, तू कर पाएगा? तेरे को समझ रहा है ना क्या हो रहा है? Like, do you understand what the fuck you're doing? Like, ये game नहीं है. वरुण धवन.
Varun Dhawan, yeah.
Low budget
But
BD.
what did you do?
What?
How did you?
What did you do?
What magic was there that made it happen?
See, the thing is, as in, now you will kind of take it seriously when I say my entire life revolves around movies. Because in my head, chal kar lenge kind of a thing. And you've seen so many of these, baap mere ko maar dalega, dekhte hain kya karenge kind of a thing. So I was like, chalo, let's see. So I actually told Meg, like, let's meet, as in, I'll meet your dad. And then we met at a Starbucks. And I basically had a couple of sentences by heart. I was like, aisa bolna, come on. And I had to have like one like Jameson shot before I go there. And then basically I told him, I'm not leaving this coffee shop until you ask all your questions you want and I've answered it. So let's spend as long as you want out here. So he's like, okay. So
That in itself, by the way, impressed
really?
him, which he
No,
told me
really?
later. He told me that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so he was basically obviously all the standard questions, right? Like, security, like is it an infatuation because you're so young? So it's all about like age and just like basically as like I can totally imagine as a father whose daughter's getting married to someone like shit young, and like I would have a problem if anybody's getting married who's like 23, 24, whatever. So
He did mention that because he was like at 25. I think you were 24 at that time.
yeah,
Like in general, that's young. So
yeah,
so if the same age gap is 34 and 44,
it would be different.
it's
yeah.
very different.
Yeah.
Then than 24 and 34, because at 24 years you may not, this is according to dad, have the maturity to think, have been, know what you're doing to some extent.
Yeah.
To me, Harish is 10 years younger, but he is an old soul. So, like, aside from the biological difference in age, I still feel like he's the older guy. So, he takes care of me like an older guy. I depend on him like an older guy, which I don't think he was ready for or signed up for. But he
story.
is he's my pillar in many ways. So I forget sometimes genuinely that there is this age gap at all. Um, like it doesn't occur to me because he's never behaved like that to me, except for the times when he's like, uh, you know, you need to take a step back, and or sometimes where he's told me you need to youngen up, old lady, and things like that. But those are all just for
Yeah,
hindsight.
I've also been like a hopeless romantic. So in terms of clarity, in terms of like all this love and like all that, even if I didn't actually, I was definitely very unclear and insecure about all the other adult life stuff. But I couldn't care because it was like pyar jeetega, like that kind of a headspace all the time. So it kind of like really helps you shield and get over some of the insecurities. So even when I'm speaking to her dad, like in my head, I'm like, this is like a shoot happening. Like this is like Karan Johar का ऐसा pan camera ऐसा चल रहा है and बाप पूछ रहा है मेरे पास बंगला है गाड़ी है तेरे पास क्या है kind of thing. So like some of the questions were around that, and I'm like, I have my priorities right, and then I gave him like very like cool like answers, which is like basic every question he was asking. In my head, I'm like going through like my references of ye kahan se abhi, what is the response, and I'm just translating it in English. And then I also realized that he's not seen any movies, so anything I say, he's like, damn, that's a good dialogue. I'll be like, fuck, that's like pretty good, yeah. And I'm like, ye chala, theek hai, ye nahi chala, theek, Amitabh wala nikalta hu, kind of thing. So it's always like, jo bhi chalega main kar leta hu abhi. Like I remember once remember that one thing I said.
The Apple one.
No, that was later. I told him, I told him basically if you do the math, because he was like very logical and like analytical. So I was like, if you do the math, technically she's older. But when she retires, I'm still getting like 10 years more of salary dough coming in. So mathematically, she's sorted, right? Because paisa to aane wala hai. So he's like, that's a very good point. So I've extended her, like from a dhanda perspective, that's solid. So that was like damn good. And then I kind of like, I tried my luck with one, this didn't click for sure. When we were walking back, I was trying one more dialogue, which is, well, like the iPod. That, before it releases, no one understands why on earth, how's it going to work, kaise sell karega, kind of. And then you have to just believe in the iPod, and then when it released, it became famous. And he's just like, yeah, okay. And then he just like left. He's like, ye sab thoda, you were stretching it, buddy.
मैं समझ गया भाई.
समझ गया. That was a good dialogue. iPod is good.
So cool.
So I have never heard any story that is so much Bollywood, and this is real, man. This is real, and I've seen these movies, and I've always wanted to सीखो यार.
Don't you see me do Bollywood stuff?
You try. I think yes, yes.
I straight up like play the music and I'm doing the whole step.
You are dancing.
Yeah.
Okay, but yes,
But-
this is damn cool.
Yeah, but I think before we go to the next segment, we should refill our glass one last time.
He has to drive.
Who has to drive?
Harish has
I'm
to
peeling
drive.
it. Do we say something?
Cling. No, it's fine. Just
Welcome to the
You should say something.
welcome to
say
the
something,
show.
okay.
Devi
Well-
और
Welcome to
सज्जनों,
part two.
break के बाद.
Part 2.
Welcome back from the wonderful break. We are with Harish.
नहीं, like make it more like Devi और सज्जनों पेश करते हैं.
ये आपको आता है. So this next segment is about raising Ava.
Hard.
Something that I noticed during the submarine was your parents were there, right? Eva was there, and there was this one very cute moment where I saw Harish, trying to feed Eva, and she was running around, and he was running behind her. He was just everywhere. She was everywhere, and it was just very, very sweet to see how everyone else in the conference is sitting in the room having their meal. Harish, who is organizing the conference, is also around with his daughter, and and just I think everyone, I felt more a part of your family and just you while being there, right? Same as for your, say, office space. You, Siddharth was telling me about this little space that you have for her. You have her drawing essentials ready over there. um, Again, at your home there's no nanny, right? You are the ones who take care of everything. Man, this is a lot. I don't know 1% of this, but just the thought of it always made me very curious that how do you do it,
And why do you do it?
and why do you do it?
Why? Side note, by the way, I always had this fantasy of being in Simi Gariwal's show.
Simi Agarwal.
Yeah, this is as close. And I had, and in my fantasy, that Simi auntie asked me, "So Harish, how do you do all this?" And I know the dialogue I was gonna say. It's not me. It's all my wife and my family. And she'd be like, "Don't be so modest."
Don't be so modest.
I had the whole script ready, and I'm like, "No, I'm just by the love of God,
All
inshallah."
right.
I know the whole song also of Simi Gariwal. Okay, anyways.
Even I do, yes.
Just a yacht. And then there's like fadeaways of like people like.
I think I got really lucky that I am married to a very non-traditional man in that sense, um, which has enabled this to happen. That's like my one sentence answer to that is because I'm married to a person like Harish, um, where he's taken on exactly 50% of raising Eva and not a percentage less. So the only thing I did perhaps extra was the breastfeeding in the beginning, which also he was really pissed off about. And he's like, isn't there technology that can figure out a way that I can do this?
True.
But yeah, it used to really get to him. But aside from that, I think it's literally been a full, like, this is one thing that I think has been like a really true partnership. Um, where he and the cool thing is I think I have certain like ways of raising her in my head, he's got certain things ways of raising her in his head, but we match at like a really strong core, fundamental core, which has been a huge plus. And the things that we have different perspectives on are the stuff that like adds amazing tarka to the way we've raised her.
So Meg's actually is damn good in terms of molding into different perspectives, and my strength is around like kind of digging and asking why. So we did have a nanny actually in our first year. We were also having these second thoughts around like just what does bonding really look like with a child, and then those questions. So a lot of these why questions like got us to like move to a city where we could like raise. So I know we were in Goa for a couple of years, 4 years, 3 years, and that was crazy because she was like hugging trees, playing with crabs, all these things. So it was like very cool. So a lot of these whys took us to like strange places, experimented, helped us experiment with a bunch of things. So even like raising her, like I haven't actually read too many books, but I was just going with like basic logic, intuition, and I used to always think about like kids and having kids and like raising a kid like since I was very young, like since I was like probably like 12, 13. So I used to always study and analyze parenting of other people and couples, etc. So one is about like engaging with the child. The second is this ideology of the role of the man, which I have like a lot of problems with in general. So I just for the cheap thrill of it, I would say fuck that. So if anyone's like, I know like when we were like when Eva was like a couple of months old, I know there was one strange nanny who used to keep like wondering why I show up to the room because they're like, "नहीं नहीं आप काम करने जाओ, can you go to work?" kind of a thing. And just to like fuck with that, I would not go to work, and I just sit there. This is the one area where actually I started empathizing. This is the first time I started understanding a woman's struggle overall in society for all other topic areas, which is it's always there is a subdued undertone of but oh no, but she can't do it, or like why should she do it? This is the only reversed kind of situation where I felt like I was mindfucked from like family, friends, everyone. Like there's like a but mard log mard like no matter how progressive my friends or some other people would be, there's one little comment or an undertone of like subtly suggesting that you don't technically need to do it, which is always there, which is very interesting. So I used to like fight that, and maybe that helped. That like I want to fuck with that and question that because that's not realistic or I don't believe in that. So that allowed us to kind of like sync better and all that jazz.
I think that also brings me to the next thing that we wanted to talk about.
Okay.
So, I mean, we just, we have friends who are now coming to a place of, either we want to have babies, we don't want to have a kid, we want to have
Let's
a
just talk
kid.
about ourselves.
Yeah, actually, we're talking about
Yeah.
ourselves.
Hi, friends who want
So
to or not
before,
want to have babies.
yes, no, but I think when we decided to get married, this was a discussion we had very clearly. I never have been in the favor of wanting a kid, or I think in that time wanted it that time, and then it of course stayed with me, and Siddharth was on the same page, right? So both of us, very cool, decided no,
Killer.
we don't want kids. Now, yeah, cut to now, when we are understanding why the different whys of kids, right? Like, why is it that people want to have kids, right? And these are like, at different points it seems very shallow but very true, that, for example, we're all going to get old, and I don't know, one just pops off sooner than the other, or so what happens to the other person?
Date someone else. Oh, sorry. No, I'm kidding.
Date someone else.
ऐसा सोचा ही
Oh,
नहीं
oh
था.
yeah, date someone else. That we did not think about.
It's brilliant. What do you mean you didn't think about that? Are you serious?
अकेले
Pativrata.
ऐसे अकेले बाहर ऐसे देख रहे, बस यही सोचा था.
So we did not think about it, but yes, I'm saying one of the points that came to our mind was, who takes care of you, right? I said my brother will. I will go to my brother to Canada. He's like, shut up. You never know who's gonna take care of you. Your brother, your bhabhi, or their kids. They would have a lovely family, and you will go there and they'll take care of you. That's not possible. So I was like, Acha, is that the reason why people have kids? Because I know my parents have told me this, that beta hamara, just take care of us when we grow old. We're really scared that we won't have anyone to take care of us. And I get that emotion, and I'm there for them, and I'll be there for them. But it never came to me before this that yes, I might be alone, and or he might be alone, and dating wasn't an option in my head somehow. Now it is. But how do you
Wrap your head
wrap
around
your
this.
head around having a child, right? Financially, just how you are with each other, that changes, evolves. I would say it evolves.
You have a thought on this?
You say first. I always say first.
Oh, that way. See, to be very honest, I was very young. I was very easy. So if my wife was interested in it, I was like, why not? If she's not interested in it, I was like, okay, because I could see all points. Uh, there are two parts. One is the practicality, logistical part. Because I was too young, I couldn't give a shit. How they kar lenge? So sometimes not giving a shit and having too many drinks helps, because you just have to figure that out.
You don't overthink.
And I thought Meg was rolling with what instinctively she was thinking of doing that time. I don't think he also put too much thought in terms of like pros and cons. We never had a list.
I wasn't sure that I was going to have kids because I got married quite late. But to me, yeah, and I mean, it's nobody tells you about how tough it is. It is damn tough, especially if you want to figure it out yourself. No help, no work. But I actually think that we take on that toughness because we really love it. She is such a joy, and I actually think that she's a large part of the strength of our relationship also.
But that's all post fact, technically.
It's all post
right?
fact. Like we
It's
didn't know
like-
all of this before.
Yeah.
None of and we didn't even think that these would be reasons.
And honestly,
Right?
if we were speaking on a different day, where
Yeah.
we just went through like 3 hours of her screaming, we would have had a very different take on like where we are with her and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's all this like very post fact.
Yeah.
Like have a kid or not, I'm not kidding. Like I'm totally prepped for my kid to say fuck you dad when she's 16. And I've already mentally prepped for that. And I'm like, okay, cool. So if she like wants a bounce and be like, I'm gonna live by myself, I got like a gig somewhere, I'm gonna understand it. So I'm prepped for that. So I'm not expecting her to hang around for longer, especially with the way like everything's going. I can totally see her say fuck you dad. Or I can like totally see her like do cocaine or something like in my couch, and I'll be like, can you all stop this? And she'll be like, but Dada, everyone's doing it. And I don't know where the world will go, right? So
Okay, so I think we are
Yeah.
inching closer towards our end. So we'll quickly jump to the last segment, which we were also very curious to talk more about, was the fact that the two of you are working together, right? So I'm gonna just ask this straight. How do you do this?
um, I think actually this one is the easiest because like I said in the beginning, the thing that really brought us together was our like intellectual sync. So I think that way it was it just all makes sense that he has a certain talent, I have a certain talent, and it just all matches. So the studio in that sense makes sense from who he is, what he brings, and who I am and what I bring. Maybe the question that you're asking more is how do we stay alive and not get at each other's throats, which could be because there are clashes. And I think that the studio's actually taken shape in different forms. There was a phase where I came in and I was trying to lead it, where he was saying, you lead it, I'll take a little bit of a back seat, not from a work stand where he'll do all of the the creative direction and thinking, but I lead it from where do I want to drive it from a business angle, from a clientele angle, from an opportunity angle, etc. We did a versions of that. uh, some of it made sense, some of it didn't make sense. In that journey we realized what I like to do, what I don't like to do, what he likes to do, where he's stronger, where I'm stronger. So we kind of figured out in the last 9 years. That's why it's, I think, probably taken so many turns, not just because of the way the market has shifted. It's actually the way our discovery has been of the way our strengths are and where we sync best. This time around, I think we just did a lot of clarity conversations. My role, your role, this is what you bring, this is what I bring, this is where the buck stops on these different things. And having that clarity, I think, has helped a lot.
Kriti and I, since the past few months, we are actually working together. So this podcast is one of our projects. Her yoga venture is another project, and I draw a lot of reference and inspiration from the way the two of you are, right? So I see basically what is in front of me. So if suppose a Friday meeting, I see how the conversations are. If someone is critiquing someone, and if I'm assuming I'm noticing between the two of you, if Harish is critiquing you or you are countering his opinion, I try to observe the language, I try to observe the spirit of it, and that is very interesting because uh, when we had just started to work on a project, there were few moments where I was like, you're not thinking deep enough, or you have not thought this through, and it felt like an attack to her, right? Or if she had like a certain vision, but I was like, I have thought this through, this is not going to work, but she was like, you have to let me try it, and I know I'm going to make a mistake, but you have to let me try it because this is what I am doing. So I was also, in so many ways, just like trying to be more patient and trustworthy towards this while also being very objective.
But if you were on a Zoom call with other colleagues, you would have also said it like that. You don't know what goes on backstage in the way he crits me when it's one on one, right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Those conversations are a lot different, let me tell you, than the ones you see, the ones you witness on Zoom call.
I think in the beginning, so what I learned over the years, and this is something that I know that everyone should remember, and I also kind of heard it from a few other people, figuring out working styles which are very different from living styles. Our ideologies and styles of living, like we might be OCD about like home cleaning, but that does not mean we'll be OCD about a Gantt chart, about like a program design. So, but there is this automatic assumption that that same style percolates into work, but everyone's approach towards personal life and work life is very different. Their goals and aspirations are very different. So, if you can hack that, that's number one. And number two, uh, using that knowledge to define roles where there are fewer overlaps is brilliant. And the more I started defining, and we both started speaking about separations in roles where it's less intrusive, the more success we got. So every time a role is overlapping, then stylistically our styles clash.
Like if we both had to do business development, Sid, which you and I are doing, his style is very different.
I would approach it very different.
And then there would be a guaranteed like clash, which there was in the past when we were both doing it. And then, the person who's feeling the most confident at that time wins, or the other person feels like, shit, I'm not doing it properly or the way I should be doing it, and feels crap. And there's always like stress, and we've gone through that. It's not, it looks great. I mean, we've written it out for 9 years, but we've gone through a fair share of both of us at some point feeling insecure, both of us at some point feeling like we're not putting enough, or we're not getting respected. Like those are very real emotions that are gonna happen.
Yeah, it's like a major ego killing and pride and self respect killing experience.
Because who else are you going to be so real and straightforward to?
But like, there's another low, like deep underlying side, at least for me, to it personally. I actually feel very bad for anyone, any couple that's unable to work together, be it because their professions are very different and they can't find any kind of commonality to team up, or they can't hack it. Because, again, because I'm like that love boy, love sick guy, for me, like, I get so many more hours with my partner, and I can't, it's because otherwise I'm actually bonding with other people. Like, as in, if I actually, the longest I've been away from Meg is like 5 working days in the last like no less than that, like four
in the
nights.
last 7 years.
In the last 7 8 years, it's been like 4 nights because I can't, because actually also because I'll forget like that I'm
You
married.
forget me?
Yeah, like, so if I'm bouncing for a month to the US or something like that solo, as in I can't process that I'm together with some human. Like, I'm built like that. So for me, like, I love the as much kind of FaceTime and stuff like that. And I think if we didn't have that, we would have just, I feel like in our personal life, then you just like, if you're spending like 17 hours or 16 hours at work somewhere else, or like whatever, 8, 9, 10 hours every day somewhere else, over time, the few hours you get together, you're just going to agree to disagree and just find your sweet spot, eat dinner together, romance a bit, like watch a movie, and just move on in life. So after a point, you're not kind of hacking anything. You're not trying to figure out anything because you have like 10 more hours to figure out other things in life.
This is a great point because if you're working, if you're spending so much time together, if we compare these two sides, where one side is spending so much time together while working, and the other side is where you have your own jobs and you come back for those few hours, right, where you're mostly tired. How do you both take care of each other?
I don't know. Do we do this? We don't give
I
a
don't
shit.
know.
See, honestly, we just like when you're fighting, you fight it out. It's not like I'm very pro. So I come from a family where we fight like loudly, like just like hate on each other, like, and then we after that what go watch a movie together. Like, I don't need like reciprocation in terms of fight back. Like, it's like I don't get joy by just punching. I need someone else to punch back because that then you get a high.
Like, let it out. The other person
Yeah,
should
yeah, yeah.
also
Just
like
like
put
just go
everything
for it.
out. I
Like,
don't want you
like
to be
fuck you,
nice.
like everything.
Yeah.
Like, like, so I enjoy like a juicy fight where we're like pulling out like shit from the carpet, like underneath, in terms of yaad hai wo din, like, this is the trend that's happening. Like, I'm very pro that because then it's as it is. Otherwise, you go to a shrink and then they ask you to hold a pillow and say the same things. So I'm like, वो 2500 रुपया वहां क्यों स्पेंड करें, हम अच्छा वाइन का बॉटल ला के ये बात कर सकते हैं ना, kind of a thing. Like, it's return on investment is higher basically. At least that's my logic. Actually, I enjoy separating business and not making it my baby. So when Mike said it's my baby, yes, it used to be when I was like younger and I gave too much of a fuck about it. Right now, it's like after a point, it's danda. So we don't talk work that much at home. So when we leave the office, it's gone. Like, so that's why I'm not very pro working from home as a concept. It's because then there's no separation. The separation is that chair to the bed. Like, that's bizarre. That's fuck. Like, so for me, like, it's like a different. So you when I walk down from home to here, I'm zoning into like work Harish, and then we're gonna fight work waves, which has very different kind of respect levels and combinations and dialogue. And then when you walk back home, you kind of separate that and talk about like work shit. And then we have this thing where we point out if that's spilling over. So if one frustration from a work is going into, but aaj tune paratha mein zyada gobi nahi dala, kind of a concept, we'll be like, okay, this is coming because that project didn't go through. Like, so fuck you. So,
And also, I think one thing that was really cool about Harish was, at least this time around at the studio, he was very clear that my his priority. This is what he was telling me. He's like, my priority is what do I do to create a fulfilling life for my family? Like, what does that mean in terms of where we live, how we raise Eva, what we do for fun, what we go, like, what is happiness for us in a family, and work is a far second. So while you've seen him say where he's like 100% zoned into work, that is when he is 100% zoned into work, but he's not 100% working.
My God, I think here is where we put a pause to this
nice.
until season two with
With a
Harish.
call back. No, this was fun.
Good stuff.
This was a lot of fun. It was exactly how I wanted it to be.
Yeah,
So, but I was not expecting two shots. So, yeah.
Chrissy was like, I don't know these guys. I'm so nervous.
Yeah.
How will we fill
Are
conversation?
they?
I'm like, तुम question पूछो ना हरीश फिर हरीश पे छोड़ दो वो उसका सब scripted है सब लिखा
Yeah,
हुआ
now,
है
now you know
दिमाग
you
में
don't need to do a prep call with
Yeah.
anybody. Just go for it.
So today was her debut workshop, which I told you about. So we got that done. We came back. I'm like, listen, just spend an hour. We have to just like chalk out for
I was
ourselves.
so nervous that I was up at 4:30 and I have been up since 4:30. So I wanted to take a nap, but then he was like, "No, we have to discuss." I'm like, I want to discuss.
Shouldn't we be the ones who are supposed to be nervous?
That's why they
given the
asked us
questions are
4:30 के
coming
पहले
from-
क्या हुआ, and then we totally killed it. We're like, पता नहीं थोड़ा काम कर रहे थे, and they were like, no, but like.
Okay, one final concluding,
Yes.
just a conclusion, and feel free to ignore this also if you want. But food,
Please don't.
food for thought for anyone who's in doubt in love.
to think about.
Bring your Bollywood
No,
out.
Meg goes first.
I'm always going first.
Arey, what the fuck? Anyone in? What is the exact
Anyone?
question? Anyone in?
Who
Who's
doubts in love.
doubting whether they should be in love?
No, whether they should be in love or are they in
Love.
love with the person they are together with.
अब ये देखो यहाँ पे again we didn't think this through.
Hey, doubt is a nice juicy word, but I don't know. Is it?
But
for
what
a
are they
person-
doubting?
What are they doubting?
Are they
The
doubting
concept of
कि-
love.
Okay,
कोई नहीं
framing
करता.
it a little, and this is again something that we've heard people asking us a lot. That how do you decide that this is the person that you love the most, right?
I would just say don't overthink. Like love is from the heart. You can't think about it. You can't ask that question, am I in love? Like if you're asking the question, am I really in love? Probably or not.
Bro, what? I just heard a dialogue. I was scrolling on Instagram and Shah Rukh Khan was like,
Because if you actually love someone, you don't need to say it. That's what he said. Yes, I've seen that
yes.
many times.
Oh my god. Okay. So with this,
Oh,
we come to the
we'll also
end
do
of
that.
Secret
That's
Show.
Then
You just did it together like very
not a
sync
thing.
में ऐसे, like, it was like
We
one of
just
those
did it.
Diwali kind of